Oh, hi, Joe here. Day 5 Yuletide Advent, and Iona, who has decided that something needs to be growled at. What are you growling at? Nothing? Right. So you're going to pull one out then? You're going to pull it out? No. Right. So we're on day 7. Where's it gone? Where's it gone? Day 7. I'm sure I just had it. Day 9. Day 8. I've just had this packet in my hand. There we go. Day 7. So I'll just plonk my basket down there on the floor. So I've just seen this, pulled out and went, oh, that's lovely. What is it? Forgetting it's another BFL. And then it dawned on me, we've had dark grey BFL this week with blended silk in the roving, which was really, really nice. And then we had jade, the art bat, that was blended with lots of other fibres, but it was one of my own in a white BFL that was hand dyed in mint. And now we've got oatmeal BFL blended with tencel though, so this actually makes a difference. So fingers crossed. Now I'll have to remember next year, because when I've packed them all up, I've not really looked at the names or the breeds of the wools. I've just went, that one will do for that one, they're all done, put to one side. That one's done for that one, that one's done, it's all been put to one side. And then I've dated them all. But I've not thought about, oh Joe, in the space of a week, you've got 3 BFLs. But it doesn't really matter. Still a nice surprise. I swear there is other blends of breeds in the next, how many more days have we got to go? 18 days, I think, or something like that. Anyway, so this one has got this gorgeous tencel that's in there, and it creates like this humbug sort of effect in the dye. So I've got the remnants, remember, so I've got these colours in there. I think no, there's definitely tencel in there as well. So I've got darker version and a lighter version from the same dye pot when I've done them. So what I'm going to do with mine is split them and then spin them off together and apply it all off together as well. But I think what I'll do is, when I'm applying it and those two have been spun off, I will make sure that if I do apply like that with those two lots together, and then apply with those two lots together when I'm applying it on, but I'll be applying them on at the same bobbin, so I just have to remember which way to spin them off in. Actually, if I split them all even a little bit more and split them, and then just spin the 4s one at a time in different direction, in different consistencies. But it's really pretty. This one's a bit more, so I think that's grey. Yeah, oatmeal. That one's the oatmeal one, so it's in more reddy tones and the greys. I think when I've gone through my stash box to fill out my advents, but that looks like oatmeal as well, just a different dye pot. Anyway, you get the gist. So it's definitely BFL, oatmeal BFL with tencel in there today. So it'd be a joy to spin this one. It is a lot softer than the BFL with silk blend that was in there the other day. But the fact that you've got this silkiness coming through just breaks up the colours of it all a lot more. So yeah, I'm going to split these off into 4s and then spin them alternatively all the way through, and then ply it off at the end. So another ghost story today. I have been looking up some folklore stories for next week, and I found a really good one for Christmas week, because really we've only got this week, next week, and then we're into Christmas week. It's coming really quick, isn't it? Right, so I'm going to get on with these, and I will talk to you over the top as I do, and then I'll see you on the other side. So I'm just going to read you some stories from various cities and towns around Scotland, the first one being Aberdeen. So the first one is Mark Cameron's, is believed to be one of the oldest pubs in Aberdeen. So it is no surprise that it is also home to some Aberdeen ghosts. One of the unique things about the pub is that between 1770s and the present day, it has only had 4 owners. That is up until it was recently taken over by Belhaven Breweries. There are several spirits that call Mark Cameron's home. We don't just mean the ones that are stopped behind the bar. To the right of the main entrance lies a snog, which is the oldest part of Mark Cameron's, and it is here that employees frequently see the beer tap being turned on when nobody's nearby, and they often feel as though they're being watched. Then there's the story of the painter and decorator who was called in to take care of some painting. He was working away one evening when he heard a distinct knock on the ceiling. He knew that the room above was empty and locked, but to be sure he knocked 3 times on the ceiling with the handle of his brush. He was answered with 3 knocks from above, causing him to flee in terror from the pub. The next, First Bus HQ. If we were to ask you what sort of building you might expect to be featured on a tour of haunted Aberdeen, you probably wouldn't pick out the First Bus headquarters. However, this is actually one of the most haunted places in Aberdeen, although there is pretty good reason for that. You see, First Bus actually have their headquarters in a building that dates back to 1862 and closely resembles a castle than it does an office. The building was once home to Aberdeenshire Highlanders, who were the city's volunteer militia, and the barracks still retain their Victorian facade. In fact, up to recent renovation, the building still housed a convalescence hospital wing. One of the men that was treated in the hospital was Captain Beaton, who had sustained head injuries when blown up by a German shell. He was bedridden for a month and then gave light duties as a quartermaster. He eventually got his orders to return to the battlefield, but he could not face it and hanged himself in the mess room. It was considered a great shame for a soldier to commit suicide, so the incident was kept pretty quiet. However, shortly after the end of the Second World War, the building was used as a housing due to shortage, and children often played upstairs in the empty turrets. Several children began to report encountering a man up there with his head wrapped in bandages who would smile at them and then vanish. The activity seems to have slowed down since the hospital wing was renovated, but the turret still stands, and from time to time Captain Beaton is seen in the building dressed in his distinctive kilt and tunic. Chaplin's Court dates back to around 1519, when it was founded by Bishop Gavin Dunbar to serve as an accommodation for the chaplains, or vicars as we know them as now. From St Markar Cathedral, it is thought that up to 20 men would have lived there at any one time. Over the years, the building has served as the divinity classrooms, a manse, and now has been converted into flats that are usually used by students. The property is also said to be one of the most haunted places in Aberdeen, with reports of mysterious footsteps when nobody is in sight, the sounds of people eating and chatting in the area, which could have been the chaplain's dining area, and perhaps most frightening of all, the apparition of a ghostly woman sitting in a rocking chair knitting. Now this one is a famous one, and I've been up to this one. My dad's actually danced with the Queen Mother at this castle. Balmoral Castle is one of the many different official residences of the Royal British family. It was first purchased by Queen Victoria and Prince Albert. It's distinctive in that it's not actually part of the Crown estate, but rather is a private property belonging to the monarch. When Queen Victoria purchased it, she felt that it was too small for her liking and had it demolished and rebuilt into what we see today. The new building was completed in 1856. So like many castles, Balmoral Castle has its fair share of ghost stories, one of the most popular being Ghost of John Brown. He was a close personal friend of the Queen. In fact, one popular rumour has it that John Brown was a servant at Balmoral Castle who the Queen Victoria fell in love with, but this is purely a matter of conjecture. Whatever the truth is, he feels some attachment to the castle, and his spirit is often seen walking around the corridors wearing his kilt. To some level of credibility to the tale, Her Majesty the Queen Elizabeth II has reported seeing him and feeling his presence. Fyvie Castle is not quite in Aberdeen, but near Turriff, about 45 minutes away, still within Aberdeenshire, so we think it deserves a place amongst the haunted houses in Aberdeen. The castle was built in 13th century by William the Lion and served as a royal stronghold up until 1390. Then it passed through a number of clan families, each of whom built a new tower. The first was Preston Tower, which was added sometime between 1390 and 1433, and it can still be seen today. This was followed by the Seaton Towers in 1599, and then the Gordon Tower in 1777, and finally Leith Tower in 1890. As you might expect, Fyvie Castle is home to a number of Aberdeen ghosts, including a grey lady, a green lady, and a phantom trumpeter. And I don't mean the raspberry blowing kind. Let's start with the ladies of Fyvie Castle. It is believed that the grey lady is probably the spirit of Lady Meldrum, who died in the 13th century. She requested that on her death she was to be buried in the walls of a secret room at Meldrum Tower. Her remains were not discovered until 1920, when she was laid to rest in the cemetery. However, from that day onwards, there was strange occurrences in the room, and her apparition has been seen around the castle. The Green Lady is said to be Dame Lilias Drummond, who was the wife of Sir Alex Seaton. The poor woman bore her husband 5 children, but none of them were a male. Alexander was eager for an heir and turned his attentions to his wife's cousin, Griselle Leslie. Lilias was heartbroken and went to live in their home in Fife, where she fell ill and died soon after. Later, Alexander and Griselle married, but on that night they heard sighs and scratching at the bedroom window, which they put down to the wind. However, the next morning, Alexander discovered Lilias Drummond carved on the stone outside his window. The mark is still visible today, and Lilias's apparition is seen moaning of betrayal while wandering around the castle. The phantom trumpeter has been identified as Andrew Lammy, who is said to have died of a broken heart when his wife Agnes died. He apparently appears dressed in tartan close to the castle walls. Visitors spot him often and approach thinking he's a staff member or a guide, only for him to disappear in front of their eyes. Norwood Hall Hotel is something of a hidden gem. It dates back to the mid-1800s and has managed to retain a great deal of its period charm over the years, including original oak panelling and open log fires. It is also one of the most haunted places in Aberdeen. It is said there are 3 different ghosts that haunt Norwood Hall Hotel. One of them is James Ogston, a former owner, and the other 2 are his wife and his mistress. James is usually spotted standing by a log fire in the dining room, while his mistress tends to haunt the main stairs. However, it is his wife who seems to be the most restless. She has been spotted in all areas of the building, perhaps searching for her husband and his lover in order to take her revenge. Next, we've got to go down to Edinburgh, and we're looking at Westbow in Old Town. For the majority of his time on earth, Thomas Weir lived as an affluent and well-respected member of the community. He was devoted to his homeland and was a high-ranking member of the army, even serving in Ulster during the Irish Rebellion of 1641. Weir was also professed in his belief in the Presbyterian Church and would hold prayer sessions at his house, which often attracted large crowds of people, all eager to see the master public speaker at work. In later years of his life, however, Weir began to behave strangely, and it came as a great shock to the entire city when, after falling ill in 1670, he began to confess a secret life, one of sin and evil. Upon the many horrid acts Weir confessed to were bestiality, incest and witchcraft. His sister also confessed to these crimes and claimed that her brother had once travelled in a phantom coach driven by a demonic driver. Such was his relationship with Satan. So she also stated that her brother derived his satanic powers from the cane which he carried with him everywhere he went. Those who encountered Weir during his lifetime would later claim that the cane would dance in front of him as he walked down the street. Though if that was true, nobody would have been surprised when he confessed to being a follower of the Lord of Darkness. But they were surprised, and so surprised in fact, that the authorities initially refused to believe the man. However, his continued confessions of a life of sin proved too much to ignore, and Thomas Weir was sentenced to death after a short trial. The house to which Weir occupied during his time on Earth lay empty for many, many years, as nobody wanted to live in the former home of such an evil individual. As an elderly couple did purchase it at some time towards the end of the 18th century, but driven out just after one night. According to the couple, they had encountered a series of demonic apparitions which made them rethink their investment. For many years, it was believed that the Weir house was demolished in order to get rid of the stigma surrounding the area. But recent evidence suggests it was actually just incorporated into another building, which is now the Quaker Meeting House. This would explain why many of the paranormal activity originally associated with Weir's home now occurs in the Meeting House. Among a variety of spooky happenings, the staff at the Meeting House have reported seeing Thomas Weir moving throughout the building and walking through walls in search of his former abode. Edinburgh Castle is a site which predates even Jesus' time and has been the scene of hundreds, if not thousands, of gruesome battles throughout the centuries. Much blood has been spilt on the grounds and many lives lost well before Mary Queen of Scots began to rebuild the castle prior to being exiled from the country. Because of its bloody history, it's really no surprise that Edinburgh Castle is said to have be home to a large number of spirits and ghouls and paranormal activity at the site, which such frequency occurs. Staff and regular visitors have no choice but just to get used to it. Tourists have reported encountering the miserable ghosts of prisoners from both French and American wars, mourning the fact that even in death they must waste away inside the walls of Edinburgh Castle. Some have also claimed to have encountered musical ghosts such as the Phantom Piper and a headless drummer. With both musicians playing their instruments at the same gusto they displayed during their time living among the living. Other paranormal occurrences at Edinburgh Castle include sudden and unexplained drops in temperature, disembodied voices and footsteps, and an unseen entity tugging at the clothes and hairs of guests. So that didn't take too long, but I think I had just under 25 grams left over for me to be able to do this today. So I love how the oatmeal of the beer fell, because of the way that I've dyed it. I've done it in patches, so you still get really lovely mild effect if you were to spin it like in sections. But you've got the natural oatmeal that comes through with these pops of colours. It just gives it a completely different effect, and then with the tencel through there as well, it really breaks up those colours a lot more. And the colours in there when you're dyeing, even if I'd used a lot of them, it's still got more of a muted, subtle tone in comparison to the grey BFL that with Silk Blend that we dyed up the other day. The colours were a lot more darker and stronger because of the colour of the fibres. So it just goes to show that you can still create a really subtle effect and still be able to create get the character and personality of the wool to pop through in sections. So there we are. So fingers crossed that's the last we see of these BFLs. We should start seeing some of the other ones. I don't want to tell you what's in there because there definitely is some, because I remember ordering it all and I remember dyeing it all. So yeah, so tomorrow, day 8. I hope you enjoyed the stories that I've just read off to you. It always takes a bit of research to find some decent ones. I think I'm definitely looking for ones that aren't just about hotels, but the ones that I have been reading from, you can actually go on ghost tours at these places and actually go and stay in those hotels as well. So there we go, BFL blend, oatmeal BFL with tencel. So that's today, day 7 over and done with. So goodbye from me and Iona, who's feeling a bit fed up with herself because her dad's just gone out and locked up the chickens and the ducks and she didn't get to. She was told she had to stay here with Mum, didn't you? Right, so we'll see you tomorrow. Have a lovely evening and take care. Bye bye.